Perfect. And then maybe you want to go there.
What am I doing? Oh, this is so backward.
I'm so sorry. That's okay. It might just be how it's going to be.
So where do I go?
Central Carolina Network. It's great to see many of you again. My name is Lisa Murray. I'm a program manager with the Institute for Veterans and Military Families. I've had the opportunity to meet so many of you, so it's so great to see all of you again. I'd like to introduce my partner here, Paul Berry. I want to say a few words.
Yeah, hey everyone, welcome. Some of you have been to these from the beginning, so we got a lot of really good stuff to cover this morning. You're going to enjoy it. So thank you for coming.
Thank you. And we'd like to introduce our teams that are here. So I'll start with Gilly Cantor. We were just standing, so I figured I'd call you next.
I think I've met a lot of you before. I'm Gilly Cantor. I'm our first analyst person. Mostly pushed forward by people like Paul who are like, can I see this thing? So if you ever have any data questions, I'm your lady, and if you have questions about the numbers or what things mean as we go through today, I'll do it.
Thank you.
I'll be hiding back here with Excel, seriously, so if you do have a question.
Dave Roddenberry. Thank you, Dave. Kenneth Mays from O2O. Sam, you want to stand up?
Hey, I'm Sam Himmler. I'm with Unite Us, the software platform that helps power the network. So excited to be here today, especially working with you guys. And thanks for coming.
Great. And Ilario Pantano is somewhere around here.
He's on the phone.
Yeah, from my team. Paul, you want to introduce your team?
Yeah, and Kelly Willoughby, she's the network executive. She's going to speak here in a minute. We got Margaret Clevenger here from communications. She has her amazing intern over here. Chris Brown, not the rapper. Where you at, Chris? Most of you know Chris. He's Raleigh, Fayetteville, and everywhere in between. Rachel Taylor in the back, who works at Fayetteville, and Rebecca. And Rebecca's in the triad, and I think that was it. And Randy runs USO.
I'm an advocate.
Yeah. She's a network advocate. No, I actually took over for Randy because she runs Pathfinder now, and we wouldn't have near the success if it wasn't for Randy doing a good turnover with me. So thank you.
Kelly.
Okay. Well, good morning. So if I haven't met you, we do have a couple of providers that are on the newer side. So my name is Kelly Willoughby, and I am the network executive. That was a title that Annette gave me, actually. That's the best. And so I just wanted to say thank you so much. I'm standing in for John Falkenberry, who's our president, who unfortunately couldn't make it last minute this morning. But I wanted to say thank you to all of our providers. When we first started this 2 years ago, I was the network director. I was Paul, and we were contracting with Cardinal Innovations, who is awesome. I think they're probably listening on the webinar. They were great. And we were Raleigh-Durham back then. So we just covered, I think, 7 counties in the capital area. And after that, we decided we were going to take on Fayetteville. We have any Fayetteville people in here. So we decided, okay, we're going to absorb Fayetteville and see how that goes, mostly because Fort Bragg and Camp Lejeune didn't want to play in the same sandbox. So, so we ended up taking over Fayetteville. And that was a huge undertaking. It took us months and months to get everybody on board and get excited. And then we became RDU Fayetteville. And so at that point, we switched over, and Randy actually was our network director. And after that, we decided we're going to take in some community coordinators who are going to be placed in the communities around the state. And we hired Rachel and Rebecca and Chris to do that. And that has been, I think, one of the best moves we've ever made. Cardinal was awesome and we love them, but having somebody in your communities there in your backyard to support you seemed to be the best move we made in terms of our numbers and our outcomes and what we were doing for veterans and their families across the state. And so then we decided we're going to absorb the triad. Where's my triad people? And
I'm so quiet.
And actually at their request, they wanted to be in the network. They had a huge number of veterans in that community. And we were like, you know what, we can do it. We have our people now, we got it. So we embedded Rebecca in that community. and we've made great strides ever since. We're really, really happy. So now we're Central Carolina, and we've gone
that's a good name.
three iterations. We're not going to do anymore. So even if we absorb other counties, we could still be Central Carolina. But thank you so much for getting us to where we are today. We had a little bit of a slump couple of years ago. If you've been with us since the beginning, you'll remember that. And today we're just knocking it out of the park. Ilario said we're a brick wall that you can't stop, is what he said. So thank you so much. We've always said, I think you've heard it from me, you've heard it from Randy, you heard it from Paul. This is not USO North Carolina's network. This is not, us doing the work. It's you all doing the work. We literally would have nothing without all of you. So thank you so much for being part of this great thing and doing the awesome things that we've done for veterans in this state. So with that, I'm going to introduce our good friend Jim Prosser, who will say a couple of words about his time in our network and what he's seen us do here in Central Carolina.
Thank you, I appreciate it. And she misspoke there just a little bit. She said that Sandy requested to join, and that is not true. Sandy demanded that we do something to include it.
That's pretty much true.
Is that not correct?
Yes.
Okay, so let's put it like it really is. But thank you for giving me the hour to speak this morning. I appreciate it, Paul. But when I think back of NC Service when we first started in Charlotte a few years ago, now almost 4.5 years ago, 5 years ago, when we first started having meetings about starting this new thing called NC Serves. And I look at where we're at today, and it's just absolutely amazing. And it's wonderful, the amount of partnerships and collaborations and, how these networking things work for us. And the biggest thing about it is what it's doing for the veterans in the state of North Carolina. And Rick, if you don't mind me sharing this example, I'll tell you, I was in DC a few months ago and went to a social event at NC Serves. We had an Accenture social event, and I got talking to somebody from a nonprofit, and I was really impressed with what they were doing. So the next day I went by their office there in DC and was even more impressed of what I saw and what they were doing. And I said, hey, are you working with a couple different, because they said they wanted to do more in North Carolina. And I said, are you working with NC Service? They said, no, not yet. We've made a couple of attempts, and they've made a couple of attempts. We just haven't been able to hook up. And then we also talked about the clinic down in Cape Fear and what they were doing. And I said, well, here's some contacts. And I tried to get them hooked up. And now we've got them hooked up with them, and they're going to provide some funding for them. So, and it was just by a chance conversation at that social function. And it was just like, this is great. And we just add more and more stuff. And that's what has happened across the state. And to show you the impact and the importance of what the state feels about it, as you know, we have my predecessor, Ilario, as a director of NC Serves. We also have his predecessor, Tim Whipperman. So you got 3 state directors right here, and Tim is invested in this as well. So that just shows you how invested we are in this. And I want to thank you guys for all you do. And thank you so much for participating in it, because nobody makes you be part of NC Service. We don't go out and tell you have to do this. Although Brandon's tried a couple times.
Just pointing at him saying.
I know you. See, that's the way it works. But for the most part, we don't tell them they have to, because they see what we're doing and they want to be a part of it. They're excited about it because they see our excitement. And more than anything else, though, they see the effect that we're having on veterans' lives. And that's the bottom line. What are we doing for the veterans? So thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I'll turn it back over to you, because I know you guys got lots of slides to go through. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Jim. Too quick, and just to show you that, this is a community of practice, because there are 4 networks. But Brandon Wilson over there, all the way from Asheville, and he always does. And Brandon has my back, literally has my back, with everything we do, and he's a good sounding board too. And so I do not forget, though, none of this in this room and all this would be possible if it wasn't for Matt here from Veterans Upward Bound. And Matt, thank you again. Because, you put on a classy act. We love this room, by the way. Sure. All right, Lisa, you ready?
I guess so.
All righty, let's go.
All right. All right, so we went through the welcome and introductions already. Today, here's just the few topics we're going to be covering: our updates, our clients, our providers, of course, what our impact looks like, and our announcements at the end. So as you can see here, we always like to put actual pictures from the network into our presentations, not just placeholders. This is from one of our meetings in, where was it?
At a brewery.
Yeah, at a brewery. I was gonna leave that part out, but
It was our most
The
successful.
beer bottles give it away.
Yeah.
So does the sign on the wall.
Got that out of there.
Drop it.
No drinking happened during the provider meeting. But it was one of our most successful. We just had a quick quote from one of our providers. And where is, I thought I saw Joe right there. Oh, he's reading it. He's like, is that me? You can read that at your own leisure, but it shows the impact and possibility of having, our local efforts tie into our larger America Serves and how it all comes together. So it's really great to hear from our providers that they are getting a lot out of the network and choose the network as their first resource when they have someone in need. All right, so Kelly kind of already covered a lot of this. You stole my thunder, but what I would like to draw everyone's attention to is just the different NC Serves logos. Gilly worked really hard for me on this one to make all these different logos possible, but it just shows you the evolution of our network here over the last 2 years. And we don't claim to always get it right the first time, but we're willing to, change course when we see the need to. So this can show you just how much the network has grown and expanded and changed. And I think another great part I'd like to highlight is just up at the top with the innovation. So Kelly talked about the slump a little bit of the network. We were seeing it in a lot of our areas in full transparency. So we really hunkered down to figure out where we needed to focus our efforts. And one was obviously our providers, and it was our existing providers. Instead of going out and finding new providers to hone in on, we worked with the ones that we had to cultivate those relationships. And Paul will tell you throughout our IPR today, that is one of the most important responsibilities of the coordination center, is to continuously work on those relationships.
Yeah, I just, a little bit to add what Lisa, yes, you can't take anything for granted. One day you lose one, I've had it, I was telling Brandon this morning, you lose one employee and things start to go south quickly. And I had it in 1 week with 2 large providers where they had some turnovers and referrals, it just boom. And you're talking about a sick feeling in the pit of your stomach because there's vets not getting connected. Good news is these people are passionately bought into this. So we were able to fix most of this and just get people back on board. More training, more awareness, look at a little bit of data, show them what's going on, kind of rudder steer. But you cannot take for granted how fragile this can be because everybody's in this voluntarily. It's got to be a move, but that's really, we get to the meat and potatoes now.
Yeah, there's the meat and potatoes.
Yeah, focus down there in that lower right there about the Wake and Cumberland. That's kind of obvious, but I want to draw your attention to the other.
He was very excited about that.
Yeah. Recently, I was in there in Unite Us, and I looked at all those counties, and I'm not as smart as Gilly, but I was like, my goodness, we have done referrals like 70 some out of the 100 counties somehow connected us. That's because of stand downs. It's events, it's awareness, it's outreach. They got our cards. They're up in Caswell County that's not in the network yet. But it just shows the reach and the awareness now of these SERVs networks. And I'd be curious to see the other 3 networks in the state too. That's very telling that the majority is actually coming out of network technically. And this was as of the end of May, I believe 31 May, most of this data cut off right here. But since then, we're over 1,830 unique clients. We're well over 3,000. Provide us, I'd have to count them again. And the users of Unitas, we're 200 plus. That comes and goes. That's kind of a number it shows you the volume out there that we have 200 users being able to do referrals, but that number comes and goes as we add and drop users, things like that. One data point down on the lower left. You can see who we're reaching. Post 9/11 generation in an age group knows how to get us. We know how to get them. For me, my challenge is from the bottom up, the third one, the Vietnam War era. There's a lot of them out there. I got to do a whole lot better job as network director. Targeting, I was in Blaine County, it's a stand down, it's full of vets, but they're not doing referrals. They'll take the information, but they're humble and they don't want to do the referral, but we're going to get there. Yeah, that was one of the stand downs recently. Two great Americans right there with the DAB.
So let's move into the client spotlight here.
Yeah, we may pull a little bit of information out of you. Last night, Lisa and I were sitting at a restaurant until 10 o'clock last night, trying to put this together. Eating chips and salsa, which we shouldn't be eating. It's really good chips and salsa. Anyway, this is something I saved all the way back in January, and Rebecca had put it like in a Word format and done a really good job of it. But we kind of wanted to put it in the timeline. But what I'll do is I'm going to paraphrase a lot of it just to show you the reach and the power of what goes on in the network. But what we had was Wake County DSOs sent a referral in, and there was a lot going on. Okay, this lady had her heat shut off. Water pump wasn't working. Car repossessed. They were going to repossess the pump on her well. And this has leukemia. Son, PTSD.
Yeah. And her mom had dementia.
Yeah, mom with dementia, father 80 years old. Okay, driving her to most things. All that going on, okay? Same day, Rebecca does intake. She starts connecting. And I'm only paraphrasing because I could stay in here for an hour and talk about the organizations and the places that she sent it to that, and I think I started the count. I had to take my shoes off. I'm a former Marine. But the places out of network and the organizations, and you can see them up there, that she touched to where that, she was overpaid disability. So she was getting like $2.32 a month. No joke. They were actually sending her $2.32 a month. What an insult. But working through all this, working through the VA, working through Social Security Office, working Wake Urban Ministries, working through all these organizations, she was not taking her prescriptions. She has leukemia. I mean, this stuff leukemia, of course, can kill you, but being off or on those medicines can also do the same if you know anything about that. So Rebecca, again, reached out to a prescription organization that was able to get her help. Through the UNC health system, and was actually able to start getting her cancer treatments again. I tell her it was like at least 15 different organizations. Most out of network, some in network, some are in the network now that weren't in the network then because they saw how this all came together. And what the beauty was is all these organizations did their one thing very well. And that's the key, is they do that one piece. There were 4 food pantries involved. They got her on a cycle of that. They got her power back on. They did all that so she could get around and do and have a quality of life. Because you can imagine having leukemia and not even having food and power shut. It was January. I mean, nobody should have to live like this, let alone someone that's a vet or a spouse. Anyway, so.
I think it's important to note, this referral actually came from the Wake County Human Service Office. If you go back real quick, Paul, you can see at the top, the date. All of this happened within that one day where the Wake County VSO made the referrals. You can see all the different needs that were assessed and the intake was done. And right away, there were already referrals providers for money management for the prescriptions, really kind of assessing what are their
I think it was a weekend. Rebecca Assistance Program, the food pantries you can see there on the 19th. Wake County Urban Ministries I mentioned. Started her cancer treatments, and that's rather quick to get back in there. And then you move all the way to February 16th, where she got a disability. So she did about, what, $2,000 a month?
Yeah, and she got back pay
Back
for a
pay.
few months, so she was able to pay off the thing for the well and get a car back.
Yep, there is no other way to put that. None of this would be possible. The Rolodesk doesn't work when it's this complicated. It has to be, the coordination center in the middle when it's complicated. I was talking to my great friend here from the Cohen Clinic about that. When they have those hard, complicated cases, they know they're going to put them in Unitas, and they know they're going to get it to Chris or Rachel or Rebecca, because it takes them literally reaching out with all of them feelers. And it's like a hub and spoke effect too. And as the good part about this state is all these out-of-network organizations, many of them, once they find out what we are doing, they're not like, we don't want to help you. It's the opposite. I think there's a lot. And I think Chris, Rachel, Rebecca every day uncover, because I get the emails from them about, hey, I found another resource. I found another resource. I found another resource. There's people that really, really want to help, and they struggle to, how do I connect? That's what they do. How do I connect? Well, we're connecting through NC Service and Unitas. So this is an amazing story right here. And if I was to do it, it would be front back of a sheet with all the detailed notes in there that Rebecca did. Yes, Laurie?
Well, would you back us up 2 slides to the one that shows your activity, your numbers? I just want to offer up to all of you, and we're all friends. We've all been in these trenches now for a long time, a lot of us together. What these numbers represent, a lot of you serve thousands of clients, state level, tens of thousands, counties, thousands. But what these represent are like the cold cases. These are like the hard cases. These are the multiple touches that your service officers, like, and there's people everywhere that are trying to help. And there's people that show up for a run, dozens and hundreds, and they won't all need anything. But then you're gonna have the 1 or the 2, and it's complicated, and it's extremist, and it's urgent, it's about to go really south. That's what these numbers are. These are the hard cases that you all are solving. These are lives saved in my estimation.
Absolutely. Thank you, Laurie. I mean,
So
Go ahead.
I have a question, because I'm very new at all
Yep,
this. So if we go to one of our runs and we find out about a need, we refer that person to you? Is that what I'm hearing?
through NC Service. Yep. And we'll have you in the network soon anyway. And you'll be able to do the referral yourself. Case in point, everybody likes the story piece. Recently, Rachel and I were at the Fayetteville VA briefing their social workers about this, and they're really bought into it. But Rachel never made it out of the building. And it was a vet in need that NC Service, because she didn't make it out of the building. And it was her awareness, not mine. Again, I admit it. I was hyper-focused on getting out of there. I had to get back to Raleigh. But she could tell from the body language and overhearing this gentleman's conversation with another worker that there was unmet needs. And then she did her thing. That's the beauty of it. Just reach out right there, did awareness. Oh, you need to go back? Good. All right. We're going to do a little lead in here, if you don't mind.
No,
right here. Okay. I want to tell this one right here. First of all, if you have a tendency to be emotional, you're going to get it on this video here. And it wouldn't be possible without Margaret over here and her great work. Absolutely professional work here. But let me tell you the story of how this happened. Ola Richardson, she touched many of us. I do other USO duties as directed. And I do, and I love it. And one of them is what's called Warrior Reset. Some of you may have heard it. Back in March, I was doing a Warrior Reset in Spring Lake, Fayetteville. And, it's for active duty, guard, reserve, stuff like that. And spouses are encouraged to come. Well, Ola was there with her husband. He's an active duty staff sergeant at Seymour Johnson. One of our providers that teaches there, gives instruction, kind of knew there was something bigger going on, because she was talking to her about finances. That's what she does for free. She came to me and said, hey, can you talk to her? So I pulled her aside in a private setting and had a little conversation and realized, holy cow, this is not an emergency. We really need some need. What she was doing was using the traditional systems out there through DOD medicine, but she needed more. So I mentioned equine therapy, and you'll see, I'm in an interview too. But she lit up like a little girl, is the only way to put it. It looked like my daughter when she was 7. She just smiled. I'm like, got it. And of course, I got to run this reset, so people have to get involved. The coordination center has to get involved. Chris has to get involved. Big Heart was involved. Cardinal Innovations, Cardinal was involved. But mainly, the biggest one was Jessica, and it was quick how she got connected with Jessica, and the video will say that. She got into quickly, they got out there for this equine therapy. If you have not been to Jessica's location, my biggest regret was it was only recently, Jessica, that I finally made it out there, because I'm an old farm kid myself, and I was at home again. And it just so happened to schedule for a visit to another provider in the network, Joseph right here from My Computer Career. He pulls in behind me. You're like, how are you kidding me? It's like a family. But it was a great interview, but it's a great story. And I think her words speak volumes in here, but so does Jessica's words speak volume that how this has changed lives. But I would argue that, as Laura said, this saves lives. This gives people hope that their lives would not have. It's pretty cool.
The moment of truth.
Does it work?
Sure.
It'll work.
I know you said
You're not connected to
Yep. Minor technical difficulty, it was off connected too long.
There you go. Should be able to make this all the way over. There you go.
This program has really helped me with my depression, and it's hard not being close to my mom and my siblings, and my husband helps out a lot, but it's just nice to have that extra help that I need.
Ola, earlier in the year, back in March, was attending a USO North Carolina Warrior Reset program in Fayetteville with her husband. He's an Air Force Staff Sergeant based out of Seymour Johnson. And I seen that there was something, there was a need there. There was something that she needed additional to the Warrior Reset that we were doing. So, and I mentioned equine therapy. And she lit up like I've never seen someone light up in months. She just was so happy that we had the possibility to do it. So we went to put Jessica back in the saddle, and she's one of our over 1,800 clients that we've served so far, and it has just been a huge success.
Warrior Reset was in March, and I was in therapy the first week, second week of April, and it's now July, so I've been a part of the program since April. We work with military, first responders and their families, and we use horses to help the adults and the families heal, bond, and get past traumatic experiences. It gives me goosebumps to talk about. I mean, she came to us very sort of shy and reserved and just a little bit of lacking in confidence, but very willing and with an attitude of wanting to learn. Almost immediately bonded with one particular horse of the same name. So my favorite thing is getting to be with Olaf and just have that special bond with him. He is a great horse. I have worked with other horses. The day after I came out here, and Olaf loved on me, and I got to talk to him and work in this whole process. Really and truly, it's about learning about the horses. So we get them from the pastures, we bring them out, we clean them up, we how to work with them on the ground. If people want to ride, they ride. If they don't want to ride, they don't have to. So it's very, it's a casual process because it really is dependent upon each individual. I think NC Service is a great program, and any type of need that you need. I'm very thankful that this service exists for military and their spouses.
You can't put a price on that, but again, Margaret, thank you, because that was a lot of quick work, quick turnarounds to get this done in time. It was hard to line up the stars to get everybody in one spot to put that together, but I think it speaks for itself. Absolutely speaks volumes. So let's talk about some more data, Lisa.
Let's go back to data now.
Yeah.
So you can see on the far right who we are serving. Oh, yeah.
Well, this isn't actually a question, but while we're talking about spotlights.
Yeah.
Well, my name is Tammy Williams, and I'm a part of the Marco Port Marine. I just have to say, when you talk about spotlight, being in the Marine Corps and just being out here and a part of numerous organizations, this has been one program that, I mean, all positive. You actually see results that people, you get in there. I've had the pleasure of speaking, who's Rebecca? I don't know if you remember me, but you called trying to get a veteran transportation, but things like that. I'm for a new program, and words just can't express how thrilled and happy. And I guess as a veteran service organization, we're trying to raise funds to help more because that's my therapy, helping veterans. And I just want to say from all of us, thank you for all y'all do, because this is the first time you actually, you're down with the veterans, but you actually seeing results when veterans say thank you, and they're smiling, they're actually happy. Not just, oh, ain't nobody doing nothing for me, but they're seeing what you're doing. I mean, I'm not trying to be funny, but I'm just being honest. So thank you all for what you do.
But someone like Tammy's in a one-person fighting hole, also doing good. She and I chewed some of the same dirt together as doing recruiting duty about a decade ago. 10 years ago now, wasn't it?
Yes, sir.
10 years ago, she was up in the Durham area doing good deeds for the Marine Corps back then. And so when I ran into her all these years later and she was running this, I'm like, yeah, that's no surprise. Because she had the heart to do it back then, you could see it. So thank you for being in the network. All righty, back to data.
And thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
And really the transparency to see all this data and know what's happening in the network. So I was mentioning though at the bottom left here, you can see the color coding of how we're getting referrals into the network. The breakdown is web form request coordination center and by providers. The large yellow area is the coordination center. How does that happen? Those stand downs, the outreach, the opportunities out in the field that all of the staff at the coordination center take to meet new people and get them into the network. And 31% for that lighter blue area down at the bottom, those are our providers. Those are the referrals from all of our network of providers that are out there, saying you need to get connected to NC Serve because you won't just meet me, you meet many other providers that are doing great work. And then 21% from our web requests. I'd like to highlight really quick one area that I'm just in awe of, and that's the last quarter here, quarter 8, 589 requests. This is the single highest quarter of people getting connected to the network. These are unique clients that were served. So I think, and I've said this to Paul before, all the ingredients are there now. We've gone through a lot of changes, but we have all the right people in the room, all the right organizations to participate. And everyone knows about NC Serves, and they're sending the referrals in now and seeing the fruits of their labor. So it's really great to see this take off.
And what other?
I just noticed that 1% of all of our clients in year 2 were female veterans. I knew that females were a big part of it, but now you've actually narrowed it down to that's actually female veterans.
Yes.
That is amazing.
Yeah, and again, and Annette's in here, again, I applaud both of you for your efforts and leadership across this state and beyond for female veterans who have very unique needs that you are helping us meet. Yeah, she was able to break it out. The numbers is 30%, it's 29 to 31%, depending on what month of clients that we serve are females. So we're running around about 9% are spouses, widows, survivors, out there. So it shows, I don't think, I don't want to stand up. It's not about me patting myself on the back. It's your reach, it's your awareness, and it's the trust that people have in this network. Because if I ask sometimes how they found out about it, they found out from a friend who happened to be a female veteran that did get assistance, like Tammy said. It wasn't just talk. They actually got help. So they refer another friend who's also struggling, and that's how it just grows and grows. So I think you'll see the web form requests have gone way up in the last 2 weeks. We've done a lot of outreach to the VA, Winston-Salem, Fayetteville, social workers, things like that. So I know my 3 amazing team members are like, we had 14 yesterday, which is great. That's 14 people that are getting assistance right now. And I know they're itching to get right back at it as soon as this is over.
And just the other notable stat on the side there with the transitioning service members, we're continuing to strengthen our relationship with the military installations all across North Carolina. And so having those bonds and O2O and Pathfinder programs like that are able to connect us to transitioning service members to get them in the network before they even get out of the service is amazing, because it gets you set off on the right foot for success, to be able to really help prevent anything from happening before it gets too terrible.
Yeah, I was briefly talking with Lario coming in, and they're doing great efforts at the IBMF level to work with the Marine Corps, the components, the service, the Army, about this awareness. You know, if I had a vision, you know, in my previous life, I was what they would call a garrison sergeant major for Campus Unit. The transition was very close and personal to me because I wasn't sure, and I'm still not sure that we had it right. Because why do we have 20 deaths a day? We don't have this right. You know, if they have 300 a week or so, the transition just out of Camp Lejeune, you know, sometime soon, I would like to see that every one of them is connected to a surge network, if they need it, that they're this close to being in. So a lot of them could do. We're this close with O2O, with Pathfinder, with amazing partners that are getting on these installations like WGU. That's up. We're Lisa says it. I mean, we're like right there for some people with decision makers at DoD in places to sit back and go, ha, I got it. We got them while they're still in. You're the link. You're the link afterwards, because we're going to drive this veteran suicide down to nothing. Because we're going to give them hope and resources. Just man.
So my understanding is in that statistic that actually the majority of that 20 a day, which is what it is now, is actually not post 9/11 veterans. That it's actually the post Vietnam and Vietnam era veterans. So
Yes.
what are called like peacetime veterans.
Yeah,
At this
and,
point. So what is? I know you talked a little bit about that, but I mean I know that that's something we face with my not-for-profit is like, there's a lot of funding for post-9/11 veterans, not as much for.
Yeah, it's awareness. It's every organization that touches Vietnam veterans that need themselves to realize, you know, there's a higher proportion of them is what there is, and there's still a lot out there. So unfortunately, the numbers are higher.
Actually, that's not true. Post 9/11 veterans just overtook Vietnam veterans.
That's actually, that's not correct. The issue of the demographics is actually really important, because if you think about what the bubble of the age curve, so we have 22 million, 21 million veterans in the United States. In 20 years, there will be 11 million veterans in the United States. So there's still, the bulk is still World War II aging out, sadly, Korea, Vietnam era, Gulf War, you know, post-Gulf War, then we start to, you know, we see what the curve looks like. If you consider that some 80-year-old veteran is almost 10 times more likely to commit suicide than an 80-year-old non-veteran. This is an affliction that runs through, which is why that you do see the high numbers of suicides are in the pre-9/11 era, vice the post-9/11 era.
Yeah, again, we could go on. You know, there's a lot of efforts at it. You know, the purpose of IPR is not, you know, it's not apples and oranges to compare it. We know it's a problem. We know we have to reach it. We have great organizations that do the data, and that's what I do. That's why I connected to the state and the other nonprofits, because that's what they do. And then my goal is, you tell me where I need to focus. And the data often tells us that, but nonprofits often tell us that. It's like, I ask someone like you, it's like, you know, thank you for what you do. Tell me what I can do to help you. How do I help you? Because you're this close to it. You're closer than I am to it. So that's why we do things like the IPR, so we can make those connections.
I think another valid point is that, you know, in the past, we've never had a system with shared data before. It's always everybody's individual idea of what the data is, and there's a lot of duplication there. So, yep.
That's very true. That's something I was going to mention. As someone who's run behavioral health programs for quite a few years, one thing this is like case management on steroids. And what makes it happen is your software. Because your software allows different programs, which gets back to the point you just made, to talk finally. I had a data request. I wanted to know, I have an interest based on some programming I'm working on, is post 9/11 vets. And I wanted to have your data cut in a way to show what are the needs of only that group. If I would have needed that without you being there, I would have had to get multiple data sets from a variety of different individuals, and then cut the data, migrate the data into one number, which would not have been accurate because of the fact I would have had such of an error in it. So it works. I mean, regular case management is great, it's wonderful, but it tends to be myopic. It tends to focus on the area or region and the specialty that you're working on. This is much wider. And the program itself has matured. because I was around from the very beginning. It's really good to see the direction that it is heading, and that hopefully it will continue, that the money won't run out, and this will become the standard, not just for NC serves, but for systems across the nation, because the ability of work, the problem of working in silos is that, once again, when people don't talk, I'm looking at the multiple needs that people have here. It's hard if you're one case manager to meet all those needs, because you don't tend to have access to all the different support services. So just bravo, good job.
And Gilly over there produced that data just recently for Martin, who oversees the amazing program and many other efforts that he and his team are doing. But I opened up that slide early on whatever, I think Gilly got it done was Sunday night or something, seriously, or Saturday night. So I'm telling on you. I was like, wow, she was working, but it's, that was a very specific request of the 42 and under. You were looking for very specific stuff, but unite us in that data, and Gilly was able to produce that, like you said, without having all these clunky silos things, and then, you don't even know if the data is right when you merge it, because you don't know. This seems to be pretty good data, at least because that's what we're using. All righty.
All right. One of the things that I noticed first was just over to the right here, it's my right, is the housing and shelter coupled with the employment. So this is one of the areas that IBMF is really starting to focus on, is this ability to look at co-occurrence. And we just kind of talked about it, taking out the duplication of efforts and being able to see how many actual clients are needing housing and then another service on top of it, or maybe multiple services. And we saw that on our client spotlight, that it wasn't just one need, that there were many needs that this client had. So we can see that many times when someone is looking for housing and shelter, they're also looking for employment, or they're also in need of benefits or money management and navigation. So we have down here, just having that part with the 20, each of them being 21% was really telling to me, because it's something that I've known as a service provider myself, that when someone needs housing and shelter, they also many times need employment services or somewhere along those lines. So to actually have a solid number attached to it was amazing to see. Off to the right, you can see all of the other service requests broken out. I feel like we need to do work in some of the areas down here on both ends, both finding providers that do those services and also making it known that the network can support those areas. I think those are two big parts to focus on in the year to come for the network, is to really wrap your arms around some of those areas at the bottom, like transportation, sports and recreation, and spiritual enrichment. I think we've started to scratch the surface. Paul and I have had some intimate discussions just around some of the spiritual enrichment and sports and recreation therapies that are out there. And we've got equine and service dogs that we already started to connect with, because these are real things in the community that can support someone that is in need.
Yeah, again, it's the bottom end. I always try to look at this data sometimes and say, where are we not reaching? It's easy to get up here and pat ourselves, pat myself on the back and say, oh, great job, Paul. But it's the gaps. It's the Vietnam veterans. It's the rural areas. It's the transportation. It's the other thing. It's the awareness of making you as providers aware that we do have these resources. And then building the volume, because I know it's there. If I go to Rockingham County, I go to Caswell County, these things are out of networks. There's a thirst for services up there that's just unquenchable. They are pounding their fist on the table, and some of them are saying they can help. So yeah, I think that bottom end down there is definitely in the transportation realm, and others, and people like Tammy knows it's critical. Sometimes just getting a person connected to where they need to be to get up to a certain, what I call a level daily routine. Just transportation alone gives them hope. It's that simple. So it's pretty good.
And I think Ilario mentioned it earlier, the cold cases. This is something our internal team from IBMF with Unite Us think about, just in terms of what we're seeing, and we call it kind of the cold cases. And what does that mean? So that's clients that are in need of these services like housing, and they're hard to place. They don't qualify for SSBF, they don't qualify for HBRP, they don't have the right resources in the community, so that can meet their needs. So these are cases that the network can support, and through some of those out-of-the-box resources that Paul has been talking about, they're able to meet the needs of these clients that don't fit that mold of being one day of active duty or.
Yeah,
you know.
I look at it like, again, Martin said it, but again, not in a negative way, but, we do have to have our pillar of excellence out there because people spend a lot of their life just studying that path. They have multiple degrees just to be able to run that pillar of excellence out there. It's sometimes it's the gaps in between. It's in between where it doesn't quite fit is where I know my team is they're getting better every day to do amazing work of filling that gap in the middle. It doesn't quite fit this housing program, but we can do X. That's kind of why some of this stuff comes into the network where they can have that intake and discussion to say, okay, but what can we do? We're not jamming services down the veteran's throat. We're just kind of saying, okay, let's identify the gap in there and let's just see if we can kind of push something in there. And it really does work when you connect 2 or 3 things, and now quality life again goes way up. Good.
So this was another provider meeting that we had, just what, a couple?
Yeah, a few months ago. There's some familiar faces in there.
Yeah, that one person in the front is.
Yeah.
So, you go ahead. All right, so provider growth, we alluded to it earlier in the presentation, just looking at, from pre-launch to today, where we are in terms of providers. We started the network with just 19 providers, and within the second quarter, we had about 30 providers. So it was a slow start, but that was probably the best way to start because we were really able to cultivate the relationships that we had, that we were close to as we continue to grow. And now we're just kind of piggybacking off of already established relationships and continuing to meet providers, and Paul's already talked about it a lot, and providers that are out of network, now with the ability to capture that data and information on who we're sending, how many, what we're sending, service-wise, we're able to go back to those providers and make the case that, we're sending these referrals, we really need to see you come on board, and this is how we can get you registered. So I only say here, but we're doing it very calculated, and we're not going to go any kind of 160 and double over anytime soon. It's really, that process of vetting and bringing in trusted organizations that we know is key to this, the success of this network. And we were talking about how that ebbed and flowed too when it comes down to actual organizations and people that have licenses. That changes frequently as well. And so if you have people that are leaving your organization, you always want to make sure that you touch back to the network, because we don't want to end up losing contact because the person that had been the POC is no longer a part of your organization. You can see kind of great support even from the parent organization, USO. This was something that Kelly and Randy last year, when we were talking about core providers, who should be on the list. And was it Kelly? You said, can we pick the USO? And it was like, everyone's like, I don't think they understand what core provider means. And I was like, no, I think they get it, and it was, you gotta have your own organization participating if you expect everyone else around you to participate. So to see them go back within their own ranks and talk to the other programs was fantastic, and get them spun up in licenses. And so you can see just some of the other individual leaders making referrals to the network, and who many of those referrals are being sent to. So.
Yeah, just a couple, a story or two always helps with these numbers, because it's a what factor. But pick down there at the bottom right, leaderboard receiving referrals, go down to Archangel Alliance. They joined around 7, 8, 9, 10 April, if I remember right. And that month, I think we sent them 26 referrals to the west of that. There's one guy named Kyle who is overcoming some medical stuff, and he couldn't be here. Absolutely a game changer in the network. And the three of them are nodding their head. I mean, a game changer, like overnight. Like, where has this guy been all my life? I want to mow his grass. I mean, just absolutely a powerhouse. So the power of one person, one organization coming into the network, deep. Down at the bottom where providers receiving referrals, you can see there was a big jump in Q7 where it went from 30 to 48 and now to 52. A lot of that, though, is my team's awareness of the resources that are out there and being able to spread that across. We try not to overload somebody. Sometimes you have to, but try not to overload them. That's why we want to have balance. So they're doing an amazing job of spreading these referrals out. And it also helps, too, if it's an organization out there and they haven't got a referral in 30 days. If if they get a referral, it keeps them active and interested in the network and not the whole, well, Paul doesn't care about me anymore and I couldn't make it to the IPR. It's not the case, but it does. That's spreading it out keeps this family going.
And, oh, go ahead. No, go ahead. Oh, I was just gonna say, one of the other areas we worked on was kind of defining out and working with providers as well to determine who's a receiver and who's a sender, and some are both, but you may not see the same folks in the top as you would in the bottom, so.
Well, first of all, I would like to point out I knew what a core provider is because our core providers were Cohen, Lee County Veteran Services, Dress for Success, Cumberland County Schools, and Fayetteville Vet Center. That's what I'm pointing out.
They're still there.
But I think, when we add North Carolina, because I run all of our USO of North Carolina programs for the state, and when we asked for USO of North Carolina to be on the core provider list, Ola was a great example of kind of how we do things is we live and breathe this network in terms of embedding it in our other programs. I mean, it's embedded in Pathfinder, and then even in Warrior Reset, we're not going to onboard all of our different subject matter experts. Hallie, who does our financial education in that program, what we do is we train them like, hey, this is what NC Service can do. Come to us and tell us if you see somebody with a need. And I think that's the way, we're talking a lot about Vietnam vets, and this Unitas is awesome, yay Sam, but post 9/11 vets are going to gravitate towards something electronic, something that they can get to on their phone. Your Vietnam vets probably are not going to do that as often, and so an easy way, I hear that they don't go to church and state. If you do one thing, everybody in your office should at least know what NC Service does and be capable of coming to whoever the user is and saying, this is what I think this person needs. And that's why we're on the leaderboard, is just because every program we have, even our airport centers, know that this is available and that we can put people in and give them assistance.
And you're also in all the other networks as well because of that connection across all of North Carolina. And
Yes, sir.
Just a question over here. I'm Doug Tiger with Troops of Teachers, and we're kind of a niche program that we're not going to have a huge number of referrals. But what can I do to maybe get a chance to maybe brief some of those top intake providers that do the initial inbound piece? And I know that stability is going to be an initial thing for a lot of the clients you receive, but once the stability is there, then maybe that's a good point to actually have a conversation with us about transition to a teaching.
Yeah, I think this is kind of like, phase 2 or 3 of the growth of a network like this is to not jam things down people's throats, but to have all providers and us, particularly the 3 team members of mine that are aware of this, and they do weave in these conversations about, hey, there's this upcoming this. Have you ever thought about X? Maybe talk to WG, maybe talk to Doug. Here's this information. Maybe we'll do a referral, or maybe we won't do the referral. Maybe it's just a phone call or an email and saying, hey, Rachel talked to me about it. I looked at your site. I don't know if it's a fit for me. I think that's that next level to really go from emergency assistance request, preventing the power from being shut off, to ensuring that this veteran is successful. Business owner, I want them to be super successful. I don't want them to just be up out of a rut, relying on programs all the time. I want them leading in the community, and I know you do too. So this stuff where we can talk, you and I can meet with other providers to do that. And that's why sometimes throughout the year we have kind of a focus group. It's the benefit of getting people there is I want you to drive that agenda, and probably 15 or 20 conversations that you had about how do we steer people, these vets and their families, to these resources that are out there for them, that are often free.
And if you have volunteers, volunteers are your best marketing. At the USO, our median age of our volunteers is like 85. So that is who we need to target. So our volunteers, when they do their training, they're trained on NC Serve and who to go to region right now.
Absolutely.
And I think it's a continuum.
We got a whole bunch
We've been talking about how that works.
We did something good
Not
about
just the transition aspect of it, but on the whole spectrum, how we can then tie it back in, so we're not always going against the grain and trying to catch up.
Yep. And again, for the sake of time, because I've got some more questions and comments, you know, when we go to close these referrals, it's often the time to have that conversation. Say, okay, we're gonna close this particular part of the referral. However, aware that there's these other resources within the network, that you can do, you know, and it's a layered thing. You know, we pilot into our newsletter. There's a bunch of ways we can do it, and we're getting better, so it's a good conversation piece. Amy had a
Yes, okay, so I'm with Carolina Small Business Development Fund, and you may already have this on your radar as far as, I would love to see right under employment, entrepreneurship among veterans. I am an Air Force veteran. I'm the only female veteran in my organization, so I get to go out to a lot of these different events because there is a lot of money being funneled into our organization to, we're a CDFI and we target underserved communities, and one of them is veterans. And we have so many new veteran initiatives that are happening. And we're going all over North Carolina to get that information. I guess all came down and we're almost finished with our own board. So I think that, you know, when I remember when I transitioned out, you know, the most about the transition was getting a job. But now there are a lot of entrepreneurs in veterans. You know, we're responsible for a lot of businesses in North Carolina and employment. So I wanted to, you know, put that plug in there about that.
Absolutely.
I know, absolutely.
Right out there.
This is actually
I'm gonna jump to.
Good segue.
Yeah, it's a good segue for Annette back here. Annette she can fill the gap that there's no one more knowledgeable about this, but Annette, if you could just give a brief comment.
Thank you. Yeah, because 2 years into it, yeah, absolutely. It's been great to see the growth and the participation of providers and the services, and kind of coattailing on what Doug said, because a lot of the services were initially those crucial, turn my lights on, get me connected to benefits and go. And so one of the buckets that we asked for from the very beginning was entrepreneurship, right? Because it was okay, because we do say that entrepreneurship is an alternate path to employment, right? But, you know, NCDMBA under Jim Foster's leadership has recognized that it is a separate bucket. It is in the new guide, right, as entrepreneurship with all those resources. So that really is my question, to be able to address that. Where are we now? Because if we're going to really drill down and get into the stats like he talked about, is, you know, we have to get out of that bucket out of unemployment. Okay, we have to be able to track that. For the last 2 years that we've done the last 2 times we've done the state Women Veterans Conference, entrepreneurship, those breakout sessions have been the highest.
Yes.
Okay. Veteran-owned businesses, 4% owned by, so it's just growing and growing and growing. And we say, you know, we help our veteran-owned businesses, vets will hire vets. So we really need to figure out, where are we on that? You know, we've talked about that next year and the next iteration of the software and all that. So really know is, where is it? With the funding that they're doing, you know, and again, I think the balance of the referrals, you know, I've gotten to that, they weren't even ready. Yeah. Right, they weren't even ready for that. And so that's fine, they have the information, but how do we fine tune that to help the veteran business?
Okay, just based on what you just said, when you say they were not ready, are you talking about the veterans?
The veterans,
Yep.
yeah.
Okay,
They
so-
make the comment that I need this, in a job, and I want to start a business.
Okay.
So, you know, from that perspective, you know, here's the information. They don't know what they don't know, now they have the information. But as far as someone who's like, I'm ready, I have this, I want a business plan, where do I go to connect?
Okay.
You know what I mean? That's a stronger case. But again, if it's a need, we can provide the information. But it's that.
So not only do we fund businesses, we have technical assistance. I'm business services.
Sure.
I'm the business services manager, and we do all of those types of workshops on
There's a lot of
business plans,
resources. Yeah, I
projections,
understand. Yeah.
marketing, everything that they need to get them ready to submit that loan package to our lending division. And then we stay with them throughout the life of their loan to ensure their success as business owners.
And we should have you guys.
Yeah,
Focus-
and again,
a focus group on
yes,
this.
this is all being captured on video and live. But these are irrelevant. We need 4, 5, 6 people. We need to get together. and, you know, and not have, it's a formal focus group, but, you know, it's maybe only 2 or 3 or 4 of us that have this discussion. Another one is have these discussions about how do we as a network increase awareness. I mean, it's slowly unfolding, you know, with the Pathfinder on the installations, with the awareness, with the transition that, you know, I mean, sometimes I've run into him. You've got this lieutenant colonel that's, I told you that he's transitioning. He's got a nest egg. He just needs help. He doesn't know where to fill in the gaps. But he has the ability, he has the leadership and the drive to do it. He just needs connected.
That's great, but the initial data capture is what I'm asking about. Is to come out under that employment bucket, where does that stand? In your presentation, where the software, that entrepreneurship is a bucket, like.
It is.
It's a bucket now.
Yeah.
It's something, Martin, you've been very patient back there.
I just want to say this is an important conversation that we need to move on. And I would definitely volunteer to be a part of this because to be honest about what we're talking about here, we also would need to look at the data to determine that we're not seeing repeats. Because if we're seeing a bunch of repeats, then we're enabling veterans. We're not truly taking veterans to the next level. And so it would be great to those veterans that were engaged in seeking services to somehow follow up with them to see where they are and then possibly introduce them into what could be next, be it entrepreneurship or whatever it is, so that it's not just, okay, I got my rent paid and I'm still living at a very lower level than I should as a veteran.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm the same as you. I don't want them to be here. I want them to go up here and stay up there, and I want them to even go even higher. And it repeats in the stuff, and in my view, people are very aware, very attuned to. The good thing is Unite Us shows us that, and it's to steer the conversation in a different way sometimes instead of coming back and saying, Mother May I need $200 more, $200 more, $200. Okay, here's $200. However, these are other things that we're going to help you do. And it may be one little step at a time. Because they don't have the faith or self-confidence to do it that we're going to do.
We could give them that.
We're going to great conversations here, and again, you know, we have a little bit of time afterwards. They're not going to throw us out, but these are great conversations to do it. I think we're going to do a little recognition here. First, I didn't even look at the roster. Is anybody from Endeavors here? Did anybody make it? We're going to recognize them anyway. Anyway. Hey Kelly, do you want to come up, Martin? We're going to do photo ops right here. This is something new that we're doing to where we kind of recognize kind of our everybody's important, and everybody does a great job. But we're going to recognize some of the top performing ones. And Kelly has said it all. She had picked those core providers, and they're spot on. I mean, like the day after I started working here, she sent me another email. I'm like, yeah, and it doesn't change hardly, just because of the reach that they have. It's a volume thing. So none of them can make it today, but Endeavors down in Fayetteville is the same way. It's a large volume of it, and I'll get this to them. I'll make a trip down there and I'll drop it off the next time I'm in Fayetteville down there with Jessica and her team down there. And I was just down there Friday doing some training with them. Amazing group of people doing great stuff. We'll say that's a special one right there. Okay. And I think it's, come on up, young lady. Come on up here in the middle. The Cohen Clinic with one of the providers of the year, and this reads, the Stephen A. Cohen Military Family Clinic has been named NC Serve Central Carolina Provider of the Year 2018 for its outstanding commitment to servicing Central Carolina's veterans and their families throughout as a provider. I absolutely, and we'll get a photo op here. Absolutely irreplaceable. And that's what I'm talking about. Have one person leave and change the dynamics. What I know is they are so bought into what we do. I mean, we were talking before we walked in here that it's, we didn't do it.
I'm just waiting.
You have to be fast with me. Anyway, I can't thank the Cohen Clinic enough for what they do. And there's talks, I was meeting, was it yesterday, for possible expansion into Jacksonville. And the network director down there, Jared, who couldn't make it today, he emailed me and called me and he said, Paul, tell me about this Cohen Clinic thing. And should I support it? And I think somewhere on the email, and I used everything short of profanity about, yes, you better be as kind as you can be with anything that says Colony Clinic, because you don't have to sell them on. So thank you. All right, I'll stop talking on this one. Where's Andre at? Going up here. There's a two-man wrecking crew up there in a positive way at Wake County VSO. Referrals both ways. If you were to look at the numbers, Margaret, I'll stop talking.
1, 2, 3.
Absolutely, again, a powerhouse in the network every day, all day. I know, particularly Chris's area, I mean, I don't know, a lot of phone calls, a lot of referrals, and we greatly appreciate what you do. Again, these are people that are champions or ambassadors of this network, that they get it, that they do their job extremely well. And when you tie in NC Serves in a county that's got 52,000 veterans, it just really makes it work a whole lot better because everybody's tying into all these resources. We're growing every day, so thank you. And finally, I had to kind of look around and said, you know what, we're gonna recognize everybody, of course, and thank you for being here. But there's one particular individual and one organization that for 2018 has been an absolute champion in everything that she does. So I narrowed that down. And just amazing what they do that's beyond referrals, for awareness for other organizations and veterans. So we're going to have us a network champion of the year. Brooke, if you could come up. I'll stop talking. I already talked.
1, 2, 3.
Can't say enough. Words escape me, Brooke. Thank you. All righty. Again, all of you. Go back. No, who's Lisa? Lisa's back.
I love you.
Absolutely.
We're gonna pause real quick. Can we get on the
Which one?
Can we pull up NC Serves? Can we pull up our website? If it's possible, I'd like to show everybody the service type upgrades that have been happening technically. And Annette raises a great point about when is the entrepreneurship bucket going to be introduced. We're going to watch a couple of YouTube videos first, and then we'll get to that.
Sorry, I was checking my.
No, you're perfect. Perfect. And let's just go to this, just right at the home page, and we're going to, and the easiest way for you all to see the different service type, we can log into Unitas, but you all can do this on your phone right now, by the way. If you've never been to NC Serves, now's a great time. Lisa, would you scroll us down a little bit, please? I know that it's always fun. We're not going to do services. I want back on the home page. Back on the home page, please. So if you scroll us down here on the Get Assistance form, you see a couple of things that are really neat. On the services page, it'll take a second for this to build out, but it's coming. On the services page, we've gone from about 15 different service types to about 20 different service types now. And you can get, I'm not sure the last time you referred somebody using this front end piece of the software, but we're starting to get a little bit deep. So if you go to what services are you seeking, I want you all to take a look at this. So benefits, and if we stay at the top here, benefits now includes benefits eligibility screening. So benefits is number one. So you just kind of work with me. And that has 4 new subtypes, which ID and documentation requests, even immigration services, right? Then clothing and household goods, number 2. Education, number 3. Employment, food assistance, housing and shelter. And then we get to income supports, number 6. That includes emergency one-time, SSI, SSD, TANF, unemployment, pension and disability benefits, right? Then we go to individual and family support, then to legal. Can you keep scrolling us? Then this is where some of you know that have been very active in the software, we've been rolling these technical updates out in waves. This is part of the reason if we just dumped it and took it from 15 to 30 with all these different subtypes, it'd be too much, frankly, for folks to process. We're already getting pushback that we're adding too many. It's like starting to become like the buffet where it's like 10 million choices and then like you get nothing. So What we're really excited about is how we took mental and behavioral health and started to get more specific, family counseling, right? Group or individual counseling. That didn't exist before. So now we're starting to get more granular, frankly, and that this is targeted specifically back to you, just so you understand. We wanted to get really granular on a couple of the key core areas that we're seeing a lot of need and a lot of use from, but entrepreneurship is coming. Then we get down to money. Oh, Sam is, this is Gilly. We were texting Sam and he's right here. and I'm doing it. Sam, will you get me? These are the geniuses we actually bring them with us to back us up. And you'll see that we've broken some of this out because we want to make sure we can get more, because to your point, what are the buckets? What's the data? What are we capturing? Physical health? What does that even mean? So we're starting to get a little bit more granular, but we've been doing this in a waved approach, and we have an idea of when the third wave is going to come, which has the entrepreneurship bucket.
Probably by the end of September, I would think, and we want to do it the right way. We want to do it across all the American service markets. We want to make sure all the organizations are tagged correctly with the entrepreneurship key to make sure that they receive referrals for entrepreneurship, and then we can track it accurately.
And Max Dolan.
Yes, I have a question about this. Can you select multiple items, or can you just select the top one and then you have to type in?
You make a referral for each specific need. So the great thing is you may have a client that has 5 or 6 different needs. Referrals against what their needs are.
Okay, so we have to go separate referrals.
So when you're in the software making a referral, it looks a little different, and you're able to hit a plus sign that says, I want to add an additional need. And you don't have to fill out your client's information again, just information about that need.
Well, understanding. I want to give another kudos to NC Serves. My job is to work with active duty caregivers, but that very quickly changed. And this is the one state where I can count on referring my veteran clients to you and not having them put off by local organizations. And thank you.
Thanks, man.
Thank you,
All
Timeliness.
Yeah.
I can speak on this. This is easy. This is one of the areas where, I don't spend a lot of time on this because every referral is different. Every timeline is different. Every veteran is different. So if you was just to look at this at face value, it's like, how you guys suck, or it's slow, or it's great, you could interpret it to be 100 different things. Just the areas that we can all help each other on is timely acceptance of referrals. And we know that some of you are 1 deep, 1.5 deep. Life happens, people take vacations, employee turnovers, things like that. So from Paul Berry, if it's been more than like 48 or 72 hours and a referral has not been accepted, you'll hear from it. And that's okay, because that's just part of my job, is to keep it moving along, or to dig deeper that person's not there, or that program may have changed. We have uncovered those things, that maybe they don't do that particular thing. Maybe the money ran out, maybe something, they lost that expert. They no longer have a credentialed person in that area. So we have to shut off that silo of referrals, but we're still working. So a bunch of complicated things like that. And then how long it takes to close a referral. I don't think most of the referrals now, there's through May, there's a few a little bit older than that, but most of the stuff is being actively closed. But I can always really use your help. Remember, on the back end. So if you're talking, what do you call it? Phase 3 growth of a network like this is you have a proper closure at the end. The exact days and times, sure, we want it to be timely. If it's a service, you can easily connect them to. But often it takes discussions. It takes multiple referrals. Sometimes, like Max said, you got 1 referral, the one it turns into 2 or 3. Max does this every day. All of a sudden, Max is helping them, and there's 3 other referrals. So the timeliness on it is the data that's to me is, what are we capturing at the end? What information and awareness are we building into that veteran as we're closing? The problem with all of us is there's never enough hours in the day, and we can always 3 more. So it's how do we, as Kevin says, is go to the next level where we're closing it. This stuff.
And I know the team has been doing a lot of work since they came on to go back and close any referrals that have been left open, contact those providers. There's reminders that go out to providers now so that if you hadn't accepted the referral right away, it's after 3 days and then.
Yep, 72 hours.
72 hours. You'll get a notice letting you know, notice will come to your email, letting you know that you have a referral that's waiting for you to respond, and you either accept it or you send it back to the coordination center so that they can find a provider that can help. And I think it's telling in terms of the different numbers here assigned to the timeliness for each of these service categories. You know, some take a little longer than others. I know one of the areas of support that IBMF is trying to provide is to talk with the networks about the timeliness aspect and when do you close a referral, because you could close that referral once you meet with the client for the first time, or you could close that referral when you feel like the need is met. So it varies in terms of service category, and God bless you, and the service that's being delivered, but we want to make sure that we're all on the same page and that we're closing referrals at appropriate times. So there's a lot of work happening in the behind the scenes with the coordination center, and then, you know, drilling down to the network of providers to talk about when the right time to close is.
I think the middle really tells you, you know, the data that in there, you know, the housing and the employment and the money and that you can just see, it just seems to be this average. It just takes a while to churn on these things and do it. The good news is that it's actually happening.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and you know, it's not a race to failure either. You know, we got to do it right. Then the vet, you know, they go to college part-time, they got kids, they got a job, they have soccer. So sometimes a day goes by, 2 days goes by, you know, 3 days goes by, finally you get back. So it's going to do it, but on the far right down there, and you can kind of see some of them, what I call are low-hanging fruit. They're easy to do. Some take much longer. Spiritual enrichment took 10 minutes. Whatever that meant, Gilly. We were joking about that last night, but it was literally like the one referral came in, it was connected to a provider like right away. As soon as the coordination center got it, provider got it, it was done.
It's a miracle.
Exactly.
Miracles take longer.
Under 5 minutes, you know. Yeah, it's faster than a miracle. But absolutely good. And, you know, it's just awareness, I think, for you. If you look at your particular areas of expertise out there to say, you know, what's this data mean to you? And we're going to have all this available to you, and I'll get the slide deck out. And these are conversations, again, at focus groups, maybe is say, how do we get better, or do we need to get better? You know, I'm not going to sit there and create a problem or make a problem out of something that shouldn't be out there. I think it's just something to be aware of. This is timely acceptance. Timely action when you can. You know, we throw weekends in, there's holidays in. We struggle all the time with emergency assistance requests coming in at 4:55 on a Friday. It's like, what the heck do you do? The veteran's on the street. You know, that's what happens. But again, we're getting better.
Hey, Paul, I'd like to make a comment on that. You know, what we got to remember, the mousetrap that's been created is it's inter-network as well. So we have 16 other markets across the United States. So what's interesting about that is you have a veteran who's living in Asheville that's moving to Raleigh. Why do you want to do that? I don't know.
You get a job.
So you have a veteran that's moving to Raleigh for a job. Now, we know that because we're still living in Asheville, leaving in 2 months. They come to us. I got to find a job in Raleigh. Now, they can do it on their own, email, Google, that kind of the old-fashioned way. Well, we can take them into our system in Asheville, send an inter-network referral to Paul and his team. They can start making that landing pad way far in advance, so when they make that move, they've already had an interview, they've already lined up, and they can go to work right away. So we're streamlining that, and those average days isn't just for just this market, even though that's what we're talking about. We're talking about veterans and spouses that are moving from one location to another, leaving Camp Lejeune and coming home to Raleigh or Fort Bragg. So that time, average days and time is important to look at, not just for this community, but outside, and that's what we're building here. So we work all the time together, even though we're on different sides of the state. All networks do, and even in parts of the country.
Yeah, we've received referrals from Texas Serve, many other places. The inter-network referrals against the state is now like a daily occurrence. Months ago, it was like a big deal, high five, and we had to have a meeting about it. Seriously, but now it's so commonplace that, I mean, they show up all the time. But, yeah, I was to pull it up. So that's the beauty, and it's growing as American Service expands, the awareness expands, and, you know, the Marine transitioning out of Northern Virginia, again, moving back down here, or he's moving to Asheville or both, he doesn't know. I've had that too. Hey, I might live on the coast, I might live in Raleigh, we're all working it as a team.
Just fun fact, Coastal has sent you guys 23 inter-network referrals.
And that's only started a few months ago.
And Brandon sent, I think, 7.
Awesome. And Metro Line has probably done it a bunch. It's scary, she has to say on the phone.
Follow the brain.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about the Cumberland County Schools, how that came about?
Yeah.
I can.
Go ahead.
So Cumberland County Schools, they got a grant, they got a grant. And it was to help military children who are at risk of becoming, like going into suspension or whatever. And so what they were discovering was when the kids were having issues at school, really the issues were probably at home, and it was trickling to them. And so they joined the network in order to help those families. And it kind of, so they trained all of their counselors and spread to where, you know, it was the veteran families, it was beyond what their grant scope was even.
Is Howard Lattimore your main contact there for that? Or
Who?
Howard Lattimore?
No, it was, who was Mark? She left.
Yeah, she
Yeah,
left.
Mark is the main counselor now,
Okay.
Mark Patton.
Yep, right.
But
Thank
the
you.
person who joined, I can't remember.
We're connected, and then right as the school year is starting, I know it's on my calendar to go back and rebrief them on NC service because there's a gap in the summer or to train more people. I don't know of any other school system out there that's in an America Serve network, but it was the work well prior to me. And I'll tell you, you know, again, the story, they got off last 2017, their Thanksgiving holiday started on a Wednesday, that Monday, Tuesday, and I think it was Monday, Tuesday, maybe that Wednesday, I think they had 7 referrals in the Cumberland County Schools because they knew the need was there. And if you read the referrals, my goodness, the story, you know, it's powerful that these Cumberland County Schools gets it. That they're truly fixing things. And this is more than, they're not gonna have turkey and gravy. This is big stuff sometimes. Like you said, they saw the need. And you have better students in the end. You have students now that are successful because we're improving their quality of life.
Yeah, pretty much as soon as they joined, Mark was
Yeah.
putting people in, and it's just an interesting way it works because it's really starting with the kids, is what's going on at home, and they're having those conversations, and then they call parents and talk to them about NC Serve and put them right in the network.
And you can tell that's leadership right there because you have to have trust.
They refer a lot of people to home.
Absolutely.
Great.
Absolutely amazing. All right, the positive thing, outcomes.
Yes, positive thing outcome. So here on the left-hand side, we have all the different service categories broken down, in which one of those categories each aligned with their resolved favorable actions. So 68% for housing, 71% for employment, money management, 71, and benefits navigation, 84. And then to the far left, all the other individual service categories. But what I really want to draw your attention to is the right side here, and that since launch, 70% of the service requests have been resolved favorably by the network. Now, when you really break down to just the month of June, 81% are closed favorably. So this is one of the network's local goals, is to increase the positive outcomes to 75%, also aligned with our larger America Serve goal, which is to increase our positive outcomes by 75%. We don't want to just be okay with the status quo and saying, okay, well, 69%, that's great, glad we know the number. No, now how do we start working on that to improve those numbers? So the network has done a lot of work. One of those areas was in our trends, and so we had a lot of unable to contact. So the networks were meeting and talking about how they can ensure that we can get back to a person and reach them. Maybe they don't have a phone, maybe they moved, maybe they're just, you know, they're not always in the same place. So we removed that bucket of unable to contact from our other outcome areas and just broke that out specifically. And now the networks are beginning to work on improving that area of support by putting in notes, or, you know, some other way to contact a person, whether it's a family member, an address, a location, a grocery store, you know, wherever they may frequent, that you might be able to help them or find them. So that's one area that the network has really worked on. Up back at the top here, the share of requests of the network has dropped out of network from 14% last year to 2% this year. That another point that we've talked about earlier is those out-of-network resources. We have the data now to go back and say, look, we've sent you 15 cases this year. We really think you need to join the network so we can make that bond stronger and improve our relationship with you. So, hope you want to add.
Yeah, the housing and shelter is the majority, almost all of the unable contact. So if anybody touches that, whether you, and even if you're doing a different part of the referral, you know, it's all of us doing our little piece. It's like, you know, we're greater than one person's effort out here, when it's a collective effort to say, you know, think high risk of losing contact. That's housing and shelter, emergency assistance request. Steer your question maybe more towards at first before intake or anything else is, hey, how do we ensure that we don't lose contact with you? How are you going to communicate with me now? You go to the Fayetteville Vet Center once a week, you go to the Fayetteville Vet Center twice a week. Where is it? And then capturing those kind of notes maybe in Unitas, throwing a quick note in there. Because I read them and it gets closed 10 days later or whatever, I'm able to contact and you read it, and that's when you just like, you know, we've got to get better at driving that number, and it is, and it's going slower. And I know I had some conversations with Chris, we're at a point now where we're chasing 1 percentage points, but every percentage point counts. But it's like every percentage point we're driving the unable to contact down, it takes a lot more effort to refine to ensure. Just don't think the service first. Think of the veteran first in their situation. How do I keep you in NC Service and never lose you? What's the backup plan if we lose contact? And it may be a week. They may turn up at the cover. They may turn up wherever, but how do we communicate that? So we're getting better. Good?
Favorite slide.
Yeah, this is her favorite slide.
I always say that too.
Yeah.
So we've really been able to build out this slide, and so since the NC Serves Central Carolina network was the 4th network in existence of all of our America Serves networks, we only have these 3 other networks to compare it to that came before our Central Carolina network. Sometimes the slide gets real big and there's like 7 other networks on there, but you can see, you know, Central Carolina is right on par, if not leading the way in some of the specific areas, but this really just breaks down our KPIs, those key performance indicators. How do we determine network health? And I can remember having conversations with Kelly and Randy 2 years ago. And, you know, we were saying, what defines a healthy network? How do we determine network health? And I know you hate this slide, but
I used to. It used to be a lot meaner.
Yeah, it was a lot meaner. It's not as mean
I took over
anymore. But we've done, you know, that's the important part. We've done our work to improve. And it's just fantastic to see Central Carolina, you know, in comparison with the other networks here, and you guys have done such an amazing job, all of you, and that's, you know, from all of the work of all the network of providers, and Gilly's standing up over there. So.
The way that we used to calculate this was for 1 quarter at a time, so I would say in quarter 3 or 4 or whatever, let's just take that slice and compare everyone's quarter 4, let's say. But now we've worked a lot to get more efficient with how we're combining and slicing this information, because it's really hard because everyone started at a different time. So you can't just say like, oh, in January of 2018, here's where everyone was. That means different things to different people. So we had to use the quarters as they need to these guys. Their quarter 8 is now. Metro Linus was already in the fall. So one thing that I've been able to do now is make it inclusive of the 2 years. So these are all totals and averages for the full 2 years side by side. So everyone at 2 years. Just wanted to note that. The other thing is I added while we were sitting here because this number was bugging me because something didn't seem right with my code and it wasn't. So I just wanted to give you guys an update on this co-occurrence stuff, which we'll talk about in a minute so you can tag back in the book.
Yeah, so and we talked about it a little bit with co-occurrence aspects, and we're seeing a lot of clients that need additional services. It's not just one, it's multiple many times. So we've been doing a lot of work on this co-occurrence data. Gilly, Brandon, who did you walk up?
I think he's out in the alarm.
Oh, okay. And then Paul, do you want to talk about the co-occurrence aspect and what you presented at the governor's work meeting with Brandon?
Yeah, Brandon that was in here, he had to do it. I don't know where I was at, Fayetteville somewhere. I was doing some other event somewhere. That's why we're a community of practice to do it. But Gilly got that data. I think Brandon had a lot of talk on it because he does a lot more housing and shelter than the other networks we do, but he does a lot more out there just because that Asheville area is full of vets that need that service. And quickly, because it's a young network, he was like, well, how much of this is co-occurring stuff? Because it just, their up and coming network was like, the data I think was very telling right in their face was, man, there's a ton of stuff. And we presented it at the governor's working group, hung it out there on the slide deck and things like that. And it was very, very eye-opening in one slide. And I know I gave it to a hard copy to all the co-chairs at the governor's working group just to put in front of them. And I used it just recently with Troy and briefing North Carolina Housing and Finance Agency and briefing the congressional staff from across the state. And the focus was on housing. We put that slide in front of them and had a 2-second conversation with them about, just take a look at this. It speaks for itself of what needs to go on out there and why we need your support from the elected officials to generate awareness that this data is very telling of the co-occurrences out there, that you can't just do housing, you have to do a bunch of other things. We just need housing to do it well, and then we'll connect.
So we've always tried to share on average the number of requests per client, but what that ends up masking is what percentage of clients actually need more than one thing. So what I have added here, and that's the number that wasn't quite, I could tell something wasn't right with it, and I was wrong and then I was right. So we'll be sure that this is refreshed before it gets sent to you. But for example, here in Central Carolina, 39% of clients had 2 requests. That might be in the same category. I know we're talking about repeat things. That might be different categories, but 39% of people requested at least one service request, like had one service request through the network. But 33%, so a third of clients requested at least 2 different service categories to date. So that's where we are with that. And then in other networks, that number, just that 2 service types or more, Pittsburgh was 19%. They have one provider that does a lot of, they're lucky, they have a really good transportation provider. So you'll see a dozen or more repeat requests for vet taxi and things like that. So they're a little bit different. So they're at 19% with at least 2 service types. Metrolina is 58%, in part because one of the services that their coordination center provides has to do with a lot of social connectivity. So almost every client they see ends up going on those lists and making sure that they're connected with other veterans in the area. And then in New York City, 27% requested at least 2 services. But the differences between who requested at least two things at all and 2 types is pretty similar. Like it's a small gap, which means to me that people need more than one thing, more than one type of thing, more so than they're coming back over and over for the same thing. That's what that's telling me at least. So we'll get that to you all refreshed and correct and feeling much better about it. I had a lot of anxiety about that bottom row. We're all worried.
Home stretch.
He's not even here.
Probably for the best.
Yeah.
For the best.
He would start clapping right.
He spoke to his head around. Is that for me?
All right, so Sam.
Hey.
Sam is here.
Everyone, so stand over here.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, hey, I'm Sam Kimler. I'm an account manager at Unite Us. So Unite Us is the software platform used by NC Serve Central Carolina providers in the coordination center. So here's a slide. I'm not really going to talk to it much. I've been taking some notes during this that I want to hit on. So something that's integral to participating in this network is understanding the software. So if you don't know exactly how the software works, that's okay. We offer a lot of different training opportunities. So we do 4 live webinar trainings a month where we share our screen and you look at our screen from our office in New York and we walk you through the main processes in the software. We have an online learning platform. So if you're not available for one of those 4 times in a month, we have this, it's kind of like an e-learning platform. It's basically like taking a class online. And then as well, we have a recorded webinar that you can just watch at your leisure. So we have a lot of different ways to get trained on Unite software. Whenever we make updates, we shoot out messages to our providers within the software, so we make sure everyone's in the know. Great. So if anyone wants to get trained, talk to me after this. I'll give you my business card. I'll send you all the information. And also, I want to make sure everyone understands the advantage of using the software and using the network as a referral tool. So what we're trying to replace are these old-fashioned ways of making referrals. So if you ever find yourself or someone you supervise handing out a list of resources, we want to replace that instance, that action. So instead of handing out a list of resources, what you're able to do is in the software, create a referral, then you're able to track that referral. So something I know that's big to you and big to the folks you supervise are when you're working with a veteran or working with a client and they have a need that you can't serve, you're going to try your best to provide that service. I know you're not going to stop. They need just do employment, but they need housing, healthcare, and so on. You're not going to say, no, we don't do that. You're going to do your best to find that for them. So in our software, what you're able to do is create referrals for those needs, but then also track that in the software. So you don't lose visibility within the software. You're able to see where it ends up. You get email notifications. They'll let you know when a concrete update is made. And then when it's closed out by a provider, you get an email, hey, this referral that you created, well, it's closed by this agency, log in to view more. So when you think about when you would make a referral via phone, you lose that visibility, right? You lose that visibility. You don't exactly know what's going on. You call that case manager to get an update. They've got a caseload of like 300 folks. They're scrapping to get by. So in the software, you see everything, as well as when you make that phone referral, you're kind of making your client tell their story over again. So they told you their story, but when you make that phone referral, you don't really have a safe, HIPAA compliant way to get the information they gave you to that other organization. Our software is HIPAA compliant. You make that referral, or all the information you include in it gets sent over to the coordination center that can then forward it to the proper agency. The proper agency gets it. They're not asking the same questions that you asked the first time. So once those questions are asked, that information is captured. They don't have to be asked again. And to get to this, so we're always looking for ways to improve our software. And this is a big tool that will be used by the coordination centers to improve their efficiency, which overall will improve the network's efficiency. So something I've seen over time, I got to sit with someone that works on a coordination center for America Serves in the DC area, and they had about 40 tabs open. I said, what are you doing? You've got 80 providers in the network, what's going on? And she said, I'm looking for resources, Sam. I said, all right. And it was this very specific housing need. There was no one in the network that could serve it, but she was not gonna stop, right? She was gonna look outside of the network. She was looking at other states. She had 40 tabs open, and I was at heart attack. So what we're gonna give coordination centers the ability to do now is store out-of-network provider information within the software. So if you create a referral and it's gonna, let's say the coordination center sends it to an out-of-network provider, they'll have a database internally, and then when it goes to that out-of-network provider, you'll be able to see that within the software as well. So better tracking for out-of-network referrals, and we're looking to improve upon this feature as well. So making coordination centers more efficient overall makes the network more efficient. So
You have a phone app to do referrals?
So you can do it on the phone. We recommend an iPad or a tablet. It's a little bit wonky on a phone, but it can be done. But we could talk more about that. And that's a feature request that we've had a lot of people ask. Do you have a phone app? And I think it's something that within the next year, we'll probably have a dedicated app you can download from the iPhone store. All right, excellent. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Sam.
All right, thank you.
One quick additional note on it, with the training is amazing. You know, we put it in the newsletters, we send it to you, the links for the webinars and everything else. I think personally, my opinion is the best as a hybrid of this is I go to a lot of providers, current and new ones, and I train them in person. But we have, with the help of Margaret and others, the new provider toolkit, and I put some out there on the tables if you're new or you just want to grab one, because it gives you the whole bigger picture of this network. IVMF, America Serves, it paints the big picture of the why, so you kind of have that aha moment. And then I get to explain to you kind of like, why are you coming in the network, and expectations from you and expectations, you know, back and forth of how are we going to work this? And then you couple in the Unite Us training, and I think it really adds the aha moment. But I highly encourage, and the majority are doing both, and which is, you know, I do some local training. Sometimes I don't get to the webinar. I don't get to Unitas. I give them 30 minutes of the why, and then they couple it together. The best feedback I've got is users that do both. I give them the why you're in the network. I give them some Unitas training, and then they do the webinar, and then that's the perfect storm. Because then they get really into the details of it, and that's why Unitas is such a great team with us, because you're so adaptive of ways to get the training out there.
And Paul is a certified Unitas trainer. He went through a tough course. He's got a certificate. So if Paul trains you, you can trust what he's learning.
You should see it. It's like this, it's got a Sam sticker on it.
Those will be available for distribution in the next 6 months. All right, so let's wrap up. So Practice 360, many of you have heard me talk about Practice 360, what it is. There's 3 different levels. Here right now, this is our local community of practice, our network of providers here in Central Carolina. We were doing webinar calls, and we also had in-person focus groups happening. So we're going to merge those 2 ideas together to create an in-person opportunity. There'll probably still be some webinar function, especially with Central Carolina, given the circumference of this network here. But we're going to have our next meeting in September, and I think we're going to center it around what we discussed earlier around entrepreneurship and where we're going in that direction with our data. When we tie into the national community of practice, Paul, Brandon, all of our network coordination centers all participate in a national community of practice webinar. We have an in-person opportunity coming up in Dallas. We're going to be going to an equine therapy location there and bring all of the network. I know she's like,
we'll talk to Jim McDonough.
Yes.
We can fly him down.
You be my +1. But it's a great opportunity to level set. We have new coordination centers. We have affiliate coordination centers to really just bring everyone together and to share in our learning. So, and all of our local efforts tie into the America Serves, the Practice 360, and then, back down to the local level. And then just really our data, cross-network comparisons, like we showed you already, inter-network referrals. We're really America Serves now across the country. It's not just, when you include providers that are regional, they may be national, our Goodwills, our team RWB, you have chapters all over the country. So how do we connect all of you? And how do we drill down to the local level and back up?
We've really kind of tied in all the updates and announcements anyway. So, the month after an IPR, I don't plan to do anything. So I think it's just time. A lot of people have children, school starts back. I get it. You have churn, a lot of new employees. Maybe back in September, we'll figure out what we're going to do this call, this in-person thing. I think we've already got 2 topics, and that's probably about 2 topics in 1 hour for discussion of how do we get better and really do it. But it's growing every day, every week. And it's thanks to you. It's people like the Cohen Clinic, but it's the Red Cross. It's others saying, hey, talk to Chris, talk to Rachel, Rebecca, talk to Paul, think about coming into the network, things like that. Some of it takes time because they have to get, clearance and organization, but we're still working with them right off the bat. I think that's the beauty is we'll get them into the network eventually. The VA is a case point in that, where the VA is not using Unitas, but they have fully embraced what we do. And the vets are self-referring. When Laura was in here, we had to get assistance page up just late last week, Friday or something. Sam added a drop down in there that you probably didn't catch was, how did you hear about us type option. And the first choice of the drop, and they have to answer it, the vet does, is VA medical facility. So we are going to track self-referrals from the VA, but then other events too. It just allows us to say, where are we reaching, where are we not reaching? Veterans, but again, for the sake of time, we're going to wrap up on time. I can't thank you enough for coming here. Some of you drove great distances. An amazing team and a partnership. I think it's important. And we're going to go only annual on these now. So the focus groups, the 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever we're going to do a year, the in-persons when we do what we're going to do besides calls, they're going to become more important again because we're not going to be doing this every 6 months. So according to Lisa, I survived to the 2-year mark So I can at least make it one more year. So I'm just kidding. And we're good. And I want to make sure, and I know she doesn't want me to say anything, but thanks to WGU for providing the great food. Thanks, Lynn, and another great network champion. And fill up your pockets, your books, your purses, and everything else you got, and take it home with you, and take 5 for the road or whatever, because we have plenty. Because if not, Matt and I and others will pack it up, and they'll go. They have students here too, so this food does not go to waste. Because it goes away, and we'll get some of the same. No, I was just kidding.
Yeah.